Today I'll be showing you how to make taco house salsa. This recipe is an old family recipe that came back maybe 20 years ago. We've been making this recipe ever since. It's a very delicious recipe. It can be eaten on very many things, from chips to burritos to anything that's warm. As far as it goes in the steps, I'll be showing you those throughout the video. Our very first step is washing our hands. Soap and water. Wash your hands for about 30 seconds. Our next step is the ingredients. So for this specific recipe, we have 8 heirloom tomatoes, 8 jalapenos, 6 ounces of tomato paste, 12 ounces of pickled jalapenos, specifically the ones with carrots and onions, garlic powder, salt, and we're going to be using a few measurements in a blender. For our next step, we have to half the tomatoes and half the jalapenos. I will now continue to cut the peppers. You want to make sure to cut the tops like that. Just like I said before, you want them specifically halved, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Like I have here, I have them all uneven. Now that the jalapenos are halved, I'm going to move them to a different container so I can use the cutting board for the tomatoes. Back to the cutting board. They're all going in the same mixture, so you don't need to clean the cutting board whatsoever. You can just get straight to having the tomatoes. One half. We have 7 other tomatoes to half. While I'm cutting the tomatoes, these tomatoes are too big to fully put all of them on the cutting board, so I'm going to move them to the container over here. It's important to, while you're cutting these, you should probably not use a serrated knife like this. Should more so use a sleek blade like this. You'll get a finer cut and a better cut, and that's what we want. I'll continue to cut the rest of the tomatoes. Now that I have all of these halved, we're going to take it out to the grill and we're going to char these vegetables. Now that we have the grill started, we're going to put it on medium to high until it is about 300 degrees. Now that we're back inside, we are going to take the pickled jalapenos and we are going to open them, first of all. And you're going to drain half of vinegar. So we're going to place the rest of these into our blender. What we're going to do next is we're going to add the garlic powder, doesn't matter the brand, and salt. Preferably not coarse salt, but specifically table salt. Then you want a sprinkle of the table salt into the blender. Then you want a dash of the garlic powder into the blender. Then, after that, you're going to add the tomato paste into the blender. After we're done putting all this in, we are then going to add 1 to 2 cups of water. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add 1 cup of water. I'm using a simple liquid measuring cup. We are then going to add it to the blender. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to put the top on. Specifically, you want a blender that has a puree mode. I'm going to show you that now. I don't know if you can see it, but right here it says puree. If it doesn't have that, that's all right. Puree just means very, very smooth. You want it very, very smooth. Now that it's fully stopped, I'm going to check to see if the mixture is pureed. Yep, it's pureed. Now that this mixture is pureed, we're going to go check outside to see if they're charred yet. Now that we're back outside, we're going to check on these vegetables to make sure that they're charred. Now, we can see The jalapenos are clearly charred because they are black. Like I said, you want them black. Make sure you're not gentle with it. Doesn't matter how black they are because you're not going to be eating them directly. The purpose of this to char them is to get a smoky flavor in the salsa. This smoky flavor goes throughout the whole salsa and what makes it unique. Make sure every now and then you flip them, because if you don't flip them, then both sides aren't going to get charred. I'm now going to take the jalapenos off because I believe the jalapenos are ready. Now that these jalapenos are ready, they can just sit here and wait outside. That's perfectly fine in the container while the heirloom tomatoes are still charring on the grill. These tomatoes are starting to get ready, and I want to show you guys how they're supposed to look. I'm gonna grab this tomato and show you guys. See how that skin is falling off? It's exactly how you want it. Exactly like that. I'm gonna take this one off because that one's ready. Some of these though are not ready. I'm gonna sort through these, see which ones are ready. I'm gonna put them back in this container. Again, it doesn't matter if you overlap them. You could keep them separate if that's a preference. It really doesn't matter that much. All that matters is that they're all charred. Now that this is completely full, we still have some vegetables left over. We're now going to put this pureed mixture into a bowl. It doesn't matter the size, it just has to be big enough to fit what's in here and the rest of the vegetables. I'm gonna do that now. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna take the rest of these vegetables and put them into the blender. Now that I have these vegetables in here, it's still a little bit chunky, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna add half a cup of water just so that it's a little bit more smooth. I have that cup of water. I'm gonna add it now. And then I'm gonna proceed to put the top on and puree the mixture. Now that it's fully pureed, we're gonna take the top off and now we're gonna pour this mixture into the original mixture into this bowl. Now that we have two mixtures into this large bowl, what we're going to do now is we're gonna take a big spoon. Doesn't have to be fancy, just a spoon. If you don't have a big spoon, a regular spoon works perfectly fine. What we're gonna do is now we're just gonna mix the two mixtures together. Now that it's fully mixed in, it should have a light brown color. Something that looks like this. A light brown color. Now that I have the top securely fastened onto this bowl, I'm now going to throw it into the fridge overnight. I'll see you tomorrow. Now that it's been in the fridge for about 15 hours, I'm now gonna set it aside just on the counter, simply like that, on the counter. I'm gonna leave it on the counter for approximately an hour to an hour and a half, just so it's, this salsa is best when it's not cold. It's better when it's room temperature, not necessarily hot, and like in the microwave, but not necessarily freezer cold. Now that it's been sitting for more than an hour and a half, I'm now gonna eat it, and I'm gonna top it with chips, and I'm gonna enjoy it with my family, just like you can too.